So, I've decided to start this video by making a statement I hope the whole world can agree on. We all love movies. But sadly, with the growth of streaming services, it seems that movie theaters could be a dying medium in the near future. Studios losing money over flopping titles like The Flash and Ruby Gillman leads to layoffs from cast and crew, which also means studios are less willing to take risks, so we end up resorting to more action movies like
It's about drive, it's about power.
However, when things were looking bleak for Hollywood this summer, we got a savior. We got Barbenheimer. And what a weekend it's been, as both Oppenheimer and Barbie swept the box office, breaking numerous opening records in the efforts to compete over which reigns supreme. Barbenheimer, which is apparently a Wikipedia page now apparently, is what Tom Cruise had been praying for in his science quote. The big return to the big screen that we haven't seen since Infinity War and Endgame. This whole double feature meme reminds me of the Doom and Animal Crossing games releasing on the same day, which goes to show that people will respond to cuteness versus annihilation. I had the pleasure of being able to see both movies on opening day, and donning my appropriate Ken outfit, of course. And I absolutely love how you could tell who was dressed for Barbie and who was dressed for Oppenheimer. But enough about fashion. We're here to find out which one was the better movie. So I'll give my thoughts on each movie spoiler free in the order that I watched them. I'll also give my recommendations on which of the two was the better one and what order you should watch them in if you're planning to do the event. Without further ado, let's blow up this party.
He says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
Oppenheimer is nothing short of an absolutely amazing film that features an all-star cast with stunning cinematography, amazing visuals and practical effects, and a horrific message that leaves you thinking well after the movie and into the car ride home. This movie is an adaptation that's based on the American Prometheus, The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer, a book by Kai Bird and Martin J. Sherwin, a book that Robert Pattinson gifted to Christopher Nolan during the celebrations of their movie Tenet back in 2020. This movie is a biopic centered around the life of J. Robert Oppenheimer, also known as the father of the atomic bomb. Through this film, you're immersed into the history of the Manhattan Project and how it all went down, and more importantly, the catastrophic aftermath of it all. Every single actor in this movie deserves an Oscar for the way they all killed their roles as their respective physicists and any prominent figure in Oppenheimer's life. It's also worth noting that there's no CGI at all in this movie, as Christopher Nolan is prone on using practical effects whenever possible to give a sense of realism to the viewer. Because of this, every explosion and visual effect is done all practically. The main nuclear explosion for the Trinity test absolutely took my breath away. The sound design in that scene was absolutely insane. Nolan uses these precise details to give a sense of fear that yes, these weapons exist in real life. It's not fiction. And that's the real horror behind the movie. Cillian Murphy deserves all the praise he gets for playing Oppenheimer. I genuinely couldn't see anyone else playing the role but him. Although I will admit, the blue eyes are something I just can't look away from whenever I see him. Robert Downey Jr., free from playing Iron Man for the past decade, proves he can still play other roles and does a damn good job of doing so. Strauss is someone you end up hating by the end, and Robert portrays that antagonistic angle amazingly. I'm highly convinced he's winning Supporting Actor of the Year. Emily Blunt, who plays Oppenheimer's wife Kitty, could definitely win Supporting Actress of the Year from how she has her own mixed emotions over the whole ordeal with Oppenheimer and how it all comes together in one amazing scene with the testimony that she gives towards the end. I watched this movie in IMAX the way Christopher Nolan intended to, and I felt every vibration, every explosion, and every blinding light to my bones. By the end of the movie, my heart was practically in my stomach, emotionally and physically. I feel that this movie is the most important biopic to come out in this day and age with the way we're heading with global warfare, and absolutely will be talked about for years to come. I didn't walk out of the theater happy or sad. I was genuinely scared and immensely afraid because of the reality check the ending gave me. My heart was pounding throughout all the intense scenes, and my palms have never been any more sweatier. It's worth noting that some of the information isn't given to the audience for understanding, such as who the characters are or the context of some of the scenes, most notably the trial scenes where I got a bit lost during the last hour. It's only until after the movie was over that I could search up some background info that ended up really understanding where the movie was going and the context behind it. I suggest researching a bit about Oppenheimer's life and the context of the ideologies during the era of the Manhattan Project if you really want the full immersion without feeling lost or confused. It's also important to know that the colored scenes are subjective, aka from Oppenheimer's perspective, while the black and white scenes are from Strauss's perspective, making them objective, just in case you're confused when you watch it for the first time and aren't used to the meaning of the filter changes. It's something I wish I knew when I first watched it, but knowing this adds a whole other layer of narrative to it. The only critique I have over this film would be the previously mentioned info not being given to the audience for context in some of the scenes, but there's also a bit of Florence Pugh's character missing from most of the film, which I noticed while watching. Then again, it's a minor complaint as we see the movie from Oppenheimer's perspective, and he himself didn't even see her often in his life. But you'll understand when you see the film. This movie earned the most domestic opening for an R-rated movie ever, and for good reason too. This film absolutely should be shown in history classes despite the rating, as it doesn't portray America as the hero or the savior of the world. Instead, it doesn't sugarcoat our actions and says, here's the facts, this is the world we live in today, and what do we make of it? Overall, I can't recommend this movie enough. It's earned its place in my top 3 Nolan movies of all time. It could possibly be my favorite biopic made by anyone ever. It's a movie that will bring you on the verge of tears and absolutely will see many nominations at the Oscars in multiple categories. The 3 hours may put some people off, but I'll just say that it doesn't feel like 3 hours at all. They went by so quickly as I was hooked on every word, every scene, and every visual that was played. This film will stand the test of time as one of the most important stories ever told, and I can't wait for it to see it get its well-deserved flowers. Alright, let's switch to tones and move on to a more happier kind of movie.
Do you guys ever think about dying?
I saw Barbie right after Oppenheimer with my friends, and we all absolutely loved it. It's filled with tons of humor, amazing set designs, and, like Oppenheimer, a heartfelt message that resonates with everyone, especially for young women. This movie was an absolute treat to sit through, even if I may not have been the exact target audience. This movie is about, you guessed it, Barbie, and explores the standards that women go through in a powerful feministic view. It explores the patriarchy we have in our society and how it affects both men and women. I won't give away too much of the themes the movie explores, but that's just the general consensus. Mainly though, it's a non-stop pop party that makes you want to get out of your seat and just dance the night away. One thing that really stood out to me in this movie was the set design, which was a complete treat to the eyes. There was pink from head to toe, and I love that every building and ornament was purely practical, giving the sense that their life is indeed plastic. I also loved that for the transition to the real world sequences, it was a group effort to make it look like a play rather than use CGI. I love the classic approach to set filmmaking, especially fitting for a movie about a doll. Margot Robbie definitely is the ideal Barbie, and she plays the stereotypical Barbie perfectly. Every doll in this movie is based on a real-life doll Mattel has made, which goes to show how much detail Greta Gerwig and the crew put into this movie. Of course, I can't bring this review to justice without talking about the highlight of the movie, the one and only Ken. Ryan Gosling is hilarious as Ken and portrays the Kenergy perfectly. Despite what the movie may tell you, he truly is everything and more. Ken is too lovable in every scene he's in, and while I won't play the song he sings, believe me when I tell you that it's 100% winning an Oscar just for the original song category. Ryan Gosling just has that charm in him when he can still play drastically different roles and still act like a natural. And yes, don't worry, he's still literally us, another personality to add to the collection. I also love the soundtrack for the movie. I only ended up adding a few songs to my normal music rotation, but the soundtrack stands out as perfectly fitting the vibes that this movie goes for. One that really stands out to me was the Journey to the Real World track by Tame Impala. It's just a nice little tune for Barbie and Ken taking a little magic trip to the real world. I definitely think it's something that families would enjoy together as it has some morals over family bonds, even if the movie itself has some humor primarily for adults. One minor issue I had with this movie was that I don't think it focused enough on Barbie and Ken's time in the real world. It only felt like they were there for around 20 or 30 minutes of the movie, when so much of the movie is primarily centered over what they learned during their time there and how the social structure differs from the Barbie world. A lot of the funniest bits in the whole movie for me was how they interacted with everything in the real world. However, I wouldn't necessarily say that it ruins my enjoyment of the movie, more that it just let the runtime be a bit shorter than it could have been. Another minor issue was Will Ferrell's character didn't really have any huge purpose in this film, despite him being an amazing actor. I get that he's supposed to be the sort of secondary antagonist, but he only ever meets with Barbie twice, and the second time being in the last 5 minutes of the movie. So I wouldn't exactly say that his character was really needed, but I will say that the way they wrote a lot of his lines, I can't believe how much Mattel let them get away with in portraying the company. People are a bit torn over this movie because of the messaging, but I personally am supportive of the fact that Greta doesn't sugarcoat or use a metaphor to highlight the social issues in this film. She outright lets a character say what they're thinking and doesn't dumb it down for the audience. No other director has a burning passion for voicing the concerns of women than Greta Gerwig, and she nails the powerful messaging loud and clear. Overall, Barbie is worth the hype and is the blowout party of the summer and leaves you being aware of things both men and women go through in our daily lives. This film is such a fun time, and it definitely have people rewatching for months on end when it comes to digital, up until the Mattel Cinematic Universe comes to light, that is. So, with both being exceptional movies, which one is the better one? Well, there isn't. You can pull out all your pitchforks all you want, but the truth of the matter is that they're both very different movies and can't be competed, as they have their own strengths on different levels. It wouldn't be fair to the directors and their visions to pit it against another and claim one is better when the other does it just as well on their own agenda. I had a blast with both, and I will 100% rewatch them when they come out digitally to relive the event of the summer. If you still haven't watched both in theaters, I highly recommend Oppenheimer before Barbie, as it's better to leave the movie depressed and then end the night on a party. However, there's nothing stopping you from doing Barbie first, just know you'll end the day on a somber note than when you first started happy for Barbie. In conclusion, both movies deserve their fair praise, and both will go down as the movies that revive cinema. That's all for me. Nothing else to say except support the writers and actors strike. See ya.